Professor assigned shelter building. Human built a solar-powered log cabin. 1. The assignment. At the Galactic Academy, survival class was considered a rite of passage. Students from dozens of species attended, learning the basics of food gathering, navigation, and above all, shelter construction. Your task is simple, Professor Yilan announced, his frilled crest swaying with authority. Within 3 standard days, each of you will construct a shelter in the forest of Training Zone Delta 7. You will be judged on functionality, stability, and resourcefulness. The room buzzed with excitement and apprehension. The Valari expected to weave nests. The Zyath would burrow. The Luran planned resin hives. And then there was her. The lone human, second-year cadet Jessica Flores, just grinned. Shelter, her. Got it. 2. Into the woods. Delta 7 was lush, sprawling with towering trees and underbrush alive with hissing critters. Each species scattered, dragging tools and packs. Some began digging. Others climbed trees. Jessica wandered in humming to herself, dragging nothing but a hatchet strapped to her belt and a solar panel kit she'd borrowed from engineering club. Professor Yilan watched her with narrowed eyes from the observation deck. What is she intending? No one had the answer. 3. Log by log. While her classmates scraped together lean-tos and burrows, Jessica got to work like a woman possessed. First she scouted trees, straight, sturdy ones, and began felling them with her hatchet. The sound of thunk, thunk, thunk echoed through the training grounds, startling nearby students. Is she cutting down trees? A Luran hissed in disbelief. Jessica whistled cheerfully. Yep. By nightfall, she had stacked the logs in neat piles. By morning, not only were they notched and fitted, but walls were already rising. Her classmates stared at the rectangular structure taking shape. That is not a shelter, a Zyath muttered, mandibles clacking. That is a fortress. 4. Innovation. On day 2, the cabin had 4 walls, a roof frame, and even a chimney chute fashioned from stone and clay. Jessica installed the small solar panel on the roof, wiring it into a jury-rigged battery system. From there she added simple LED lights, a heating coil, and a makeshift cooking surface. When asked what she was doing, she shrugged. My abuelo taught me, if you're gonna do a job, do it right. The other students' shelters sagged in comparison. A Valari nest collapsed in the rain. A Zyath burrow flooded. The Luran resin hive hardened crookedly. Meanwhile, Jessica's cabin stood proud, smoke curling lazily from its chimney. 5. Inspection. On the 3rd day, Professor Yilan toured the shelters. He praised a few efforts, excused others, and grimaced at most. Then he arrived at Jessica's creation. The log cabin gleamed in the morning light, sturdy and warm. The door swung open smoothly. Inside, there were bunks, shelves, a working stove, and softly glowing lights powered by her solar kit. Professor Yilan blinked. This is not a shelter. This is a residence. Jessica, hands on hips, grinned. Assignment was to build a shelter, right? Well, nothing shelters you better than 4 walls and a roof. The professor sputtered. This is far beyond the scope of expectation. She shrugged. Extra credit? 6. Student reactions. Word spread fast. Soon, half the class had abandoned their damp, drafty constructions to huddle inside Jessica's cabin. The fireplace crackled, the lights glowed, and hot soup simmered on her stove. This is luxury, a Valari whispered, feathers puffed in amazement. This is cheating, the Zyath commander-in-training snapped, though he greedily accepted a steaming mug of broth. Jessica only laughed. Cheating? Nah. Just resource management. Everything I used was local except the solar kit, and hey, survival's about working with what you've got. 7. The Professor's Dilemma. Professor Yilan filed his report late that night. The human's construction exceeds all parameters. It demonstrates engineering, resource acquisition, and long-term sustainability. However, it undermines the purpose of the assignment. This was meant to be a basic test of shelter, not civilization building. He rubbed his temples with his claws. But how do I grade this? 8. Council debate. At the Academy Council, Yilan presented his findings. Holo images of the cabin floated above the chamber. This is unacceptable, a councillor barked. The assignment was not intended to reveal ambition, only survival instinct. Another countered, yet is it not the highest form of survival instinct to improve beyond necessity? A third murmured, if this is what humans consider a shelter, then perhaps we misjudged their species entirely. The councillors argued late into the night, but one fact was undeniable: Jessica had raised the bar for the entire course. 9. Graduation day. When Jessica received her evaluation, she expected reprimand. Instead, the professor handed her a sealed envelope. "Congratulations," he said, his crest twitching. "Your cabin has been designated a permanent fixture of the training grounds. Future cadets will study it as an example." Her eyes widened. "Wait, you're keeping it?" He sighed. "It is too useful to dismantle." Jessica grinned. "So, that's a pass." The professor groaned. "It is a distinction with honors." 10. Epilogue. Years later, cadets still whispered about the human cabin in Delta 7. Some said it glowed at night like a beacon. Others claimed it had become a social hub, where students gathered to cook and tell stories. Professor Yilan retired with more grey frills than he liked to admit. Yet whenever he walked by the cabin and heard laughter spilling from within, he remembered one stubborn human cadet with a hatchet, a solar kit, and an unshakable grin. And he admitted, grudgingly, that perhaps the human was right. Nothing shelters you better than 4 walls, a roof, and a little ingenuity.